Welcome to Discover Gluten Freedom. I'm Melinda Tucker, and today I'm going to be making a Panzanella frittata. The nice thing about a Panzanella frittata is, for one, it's something I kind of created. It's really neat because around the holidays, you know how we have our breadcrumbs around and our stale bread for our dressing and our stale bread for our breadcrumbs, all those kind of things. It kind of gives us another purpose for that. Also, I really like panzanella salad, and it tends to be a little seasonal to me, so it sort of brings it into the holiday season in the fall and winter and gives me a way to have that bright flavor that I like, but have it in a frittata. So what I'm going to do, I have here about 3 slices of stale bread, and I've slightly toasted them, not till they're brown, but they're just dried out really good, but they're not quite croutons yet. And I have my tomato, I have some basil, and some Italian parsley. So I'm going to chop these up first and get them nice and fine, and they're going to make up my panzanella salad part. So this is my Italian parsley. You can use regular parsley. Italian parsley looks a lot like cilantro, but it doesn't taste like it, which is kind of nice. We're going to add that in. And the same thing with my basil. I kind of roll it up in a little tight cigar, and then I cut it into little slices. And this gives an Italian-y flavor, you know, to your panzanella salad. We're not going to let it necessarily sit as long as we would one that we're just going to eat, but we are going to let it sit a little bit while we prepare our other items. For the tomato, I'm just going to coarsely chop it. And the tomato actually has a lot of nice acidy kind of juices to it, and it complements, of course, the oil and vinegar that we're going to add in a little bit. After that, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of oil. For this dish, usually you would use olive oil, but I found that in my frittata, I just use a light oil. This is a grapeseed oil, and I'm going to give it about 2 tablespoons, and I'm going to do the same with a white balsamic. So it's not a strong balsamic either. It's just an easygoing, kind of fresh balsamic vinegar. Then I'm going to sprinkle in some salt and pepper. Let's move these over here. And I'm going to add a little bit of garlic too. Probably for this, a ½ teaspoon, maybe a little bit more. I really like garlic, so I go a little bit heavy on that. I'm just going to toss these things around just to be sure that they're all kind of coated, and see if I'm going to need to add any more liquid to it, just to be sure they're sort of behaving the way I like. It's smelling really good. And I am going to add a little bit more, as a matter of fact. And for today's frittata, I'm doing about 3 slices of stale bread that I cut up, like I said, and I'm doing 6 eggs. So that's usually my ratio. I do about 1 slice of bread per egg each time I do it. It doesn't really change, it just grows or gets smaller. So while that's kind of sitting there and marrying, I have taken 6 eggs and I've added a 1/4 cup of plain rice milk to it. You can add regular milk, of course, but I was keeping this one dairy-free for the most part. I might top it with a little Parmesan later, but rice milk is something I usually use in these type of things. For my egg mixture, I do go ahead and salt and pepper it again, just because we all know that our eggs usually need a little salt and pepper. And I like a coarse pepper because it just looks nice. I'm going to pour that in with my bread and tomatoes. So while my eggs and bread are resting, I'm going to go get my pan hot. That's really important that the pan's good and hot when you get started. So we're going to go turn it on. I've added 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to be sure it melts good and the pan's good and hot before I bring over my egg mixture. Also, I've preheated my oven to 350. Part of the joy of making a frittata is you cook it a little bit on the stove, you make sure that it's getting a little set, and then you put it in the oven to finish. All right, my pan's good and hot, so let's go get it in the pan. We're just going to rake this in here, and I need to turn down the heat a little bit from my stove. You just kind of want to watch it, and you just sort of want to keep bringing in the outside to the middle a little bit, sort of like making an omelet. And when you have all this bread in there, you want to be sure too that your bread's still evenly distributed. And this will take 4 minutes, maybe, depending on how many eggs you're cooking, to get it set enough to be ready to put into the oven. I really like frittatas because they're very protein-based, obviously, and this one has just become one of my favorites. But again, around the holidays, you're always finding that you're cooking all day, but sometimes you don't have anything to eat, and I've been that way many times myself. My guys, my husband and my son, used to go duck hunting every Thanksgiving morning really, really early, way before I ever got up. So I had the whole house to myself. And that was for me to prepare Thanksgiving dinner for later on. So I would watch the Macy's parade, and I would cook, and I would just have a great time. However, it was really kind of funny. You're cooking all this food, and coming around noon, you're thinking, I'm starving to death, because there's nothing to eat, because it's all for later. So something like this around, it gives them a go-to to eat when they get in. It gives me something to eat, and it's protein-based, and it makes you feel good and keeps you going throughout the day. Okay, my frittata is starting to set up pretty good. I can tell it's getting firm, a little jiggly on top, but still firm on the bottom. I don't want it to cook too much, or otherwise when I flip it over, it'll be overcooked on that side. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the oven. My oven's at 350, like I said. I'm gonna set the timer for about 10 minutes, and I'll check it then. You always want to be sure that you're using a pan that has an oven-proof handle. If you don't have one or you're unsure, generally speaking, you can wrap them in foil and put them in that way, and then you're going to be safe. I usually look for it on the packaging and be sure that all of mine are oven-proof, because it seems like I'm always throwing stuff in the oven from the stovetop. Okay, our frittata's done. It ended up cooking for about 14 minutes, so I'm going to pull it out. Looky there. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to slide it out while it's still hot onto a plate. I'm going to add a little bit of fresh grated Parmesan just to the top of this and let it melt down. It'll give it a little bit more richness, but you can always leave it off if you don't like that. And it's ready when you are. You can never go wrong with a little more cheese. You can find this recipe and more on our website, discoverglutenfreedom.com. I hope that my Panzanella frittata helps you discover your gluten freedom. Thanks for watching.